Thank you for coming out and speaking to us. So you were in the House when this when the announcement was made. I'm sure that you managed to keep abreast of what was going on.
Yes.
How does the UDM respond to the President's announcement?
Look, there was nothing outstanding about the appointments today. The President decided to miss an opportunity to provide sterling leadership on this issue, because in our view, some of the ministers were perennial poor performers in that cabinet should have been removed. One of them is Stella Ndabeni, for instance. We cannot understand why Minister, the one who was in communications, Nomvula Nonkonyane, has been moved to environmental affairs when she does not have a good track record in communications either. But as we say, so we want to take this opportunity to congratulate Stella Ndabeni for being appointed Minister of Communications. I think it's a step in the right direction, trying to make sure that young people are also represented in the cabinet. We're not going to give a blank check, but we are going to support her as long as she does the right things. We think that communications in particular needs a young person with fresh ideas and a fresh approach in terms of implementing the policies of the ANC. That's important. And Minister Cele, the taste of the pudding will be in the eating. We understand that Home Affairs faces a number of challenges. It's come through a very difficult time under the leadership of Minister Gigaba. We hope that you'll be able to turn things around. Telecommunications, the decision to merge it with communications is a rational one. It was a waste of taxpayers' money to create all these ministries that add very little to no value to the South African society. We should be looking to do the same thing to a number of portfolios that were created unnecessarily by the ANC because former President Zuma wanted to reward his cronies. From where we're sitting, the decision to shift Minister Nomvula Nonkonyane to Environmental Affairs was rewarding bad and poor performance and rewarding mediocrity in our view.
Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Kwankwa. I have Solly Milatsi of the Democratic Alliance who will now be joining us. You can come through, yes? You can just stand here. Thank you so much for coming to speak to us. All your colleagues who've been here before you, they've expressed happiness about the collapsing of the two departments into one, but they've also expressed disappointment about the actual reshuffling. They've mentioned names of certain ministers who they thought were leaving, specifically Minister Mokonyane and Minister Dlamini. Do you share that same view as your colleagues in the House?
Look, absolutely. There was an expectation that the President would show decisive leadership, but this reshuffle is a major disappointment because what we are seeing is basically the recycling of the same old failed ministers from previous department being moved to other departments, and the collapsing or merging of the two departments you are referring to gets overshadowed by the fact that there are still ministers in President Ramaphosa's presidency who have been found by the court to have lied, who have been found on numerous terms to have not acted ethically, and the fact that they still remain in cabinet today remains one of the biggest disappointment because he has had an opportunity time and again to chuck them out of cabinet. But you know, we understand that his priority is balancing the different factions in the ANC, but that comes at a great cost to service delivery and good governance and accountability.
One of the MPs who stood here, they said they doubted whether the new communications minister, Minister Ndabeni-Abrahams, would be up to the task of handling this very important portfolio. She is young. It is a department, and when I say she's young, I mean it as a good thing because it's part of the generational mix. It is, however, a really difficult department to get your grips into. How do you think she'll fare in this role?
Look, serving in government, if you are competent and you are ethical, there shouldn't be anything difficult about it. You know, I think her appointment, again, the President had to consider, you know, pleasing the old ANC Youth League guard, you know, but be that as it might be, the proof will be in the pudding for her.
So you also said earlier on that Cyril Ramaphosa, President Cyril Ramaphosa, he's balancing certain forces. Is that still a big thing within the party, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. This reshuffle shows exactly it. You know, we know why there's fears around taking action against Bathabile Dlamini because she represents a very powerful bloc of the ANC Women's League. But that again that's what constrains the ability of this government to deliver, because what takes priority is factional interest rather than what's in the best interest of good governance and service delivery.
Sorry, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming down to speak to us. Let me just check. Oh, yes, I have the NFP with me right now. Professor Nhlanhla Kubisa.
Yes,
I'm not sure where I'm supposed to stand and where you're supposed to stand. Do you want to swap? We should swap. Do you want to?
We're going to swap this up.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Prof, you've just done out of the National Assembly, but you do know what the announcement is about?
I do.
This way?
I do.
You come closer?
Closer. Okay.
Yes. How do you feel about President Ramaphosa's cabinet reshuffle this afternoon?
Well, there is nothing robust, there is nothing radical in the reshuffle. We've seen old people taken to other portfolios, and I think President Ramaphosa is rather very cautious. It seems he's dealing with the factions within the ANC, and it doesn't want to bring about a lot of reshuffling at this point in time. Of course, one would say it's a bit cosmetic, but the country out there needs people of competence, integrity, and the people who deliver to the masses of our people. That's all that the people are waiting for. And it seems to me that the cabinet is still bloated, although President Ramaphosa said this is merely the genesis of it. But of course, the NFP wants to congratulate Miss Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams. She's still young. I think President Ramaphosa is trying by all means to come with that generational mix, but we will say that one is a step in the right direction, where you bring in young people to cabinet, people with skills. But what the public needs out there is competence, integrity, professionalism. People deliver to the masses of our people because of high unemployment, poverty. That's all that we need within the country. But we want to congratulate the young lady for being elevated to the position of being a Minister of Communications. It's now one department. We are waiting for more departments to be realigned and reconfigured, as he promised at the beginning when he was delivering the State of the Nation address.
Prof, thank you so much for speaking to us today. Thank you. With me, I have the IFP's Nkululeko Hlengwa. Sorry about that. Thank you for speaking to us today. You've heard what your colleague just said. Everybody is going on about the communications department, the collapse, and of course the new minister. First, give me your thoughts on that.
Well, I want to congratulate Sister Stella on her appointment. I believe that she's got a mammoth task on her hands, given the fact that she has to now merge two departments. But of course, she has been in this sector ever since she was appointed onto the national executive, and so one believes that she's got a good footing on the good grounding for that. Of course, the narrative that youth is now in the national executive does fall away, with all due respect, because Stella's not below the age of 35, and secondly is because the ANC doesn't have anybody who's youth in parliament, so the president's choice was rather limited in that regard as well. But having said that, the president has missed an opportunity to actually walk his talk. The so-called new dawn has become a sunset that we are used to from the ANC, given the fact that he spoke about generational mix, he spoke about a new sort of approach in his introduction to this reshuffle. So one expected a thunderous shake-up, and it didn't happen. The president missed the opportunity precisely because he's actually managing and balancing the warring factions within the ANC. Can he explain why the ministers who should have gone are still there? Minister Batabile Dlamini, Mr. Nomvula Mokonyan, amongst others. He can't explain it. Safe to say that had he dared to touch Minister Batabile Dlamini, albeit the findings that are against him, he would have been at the receiving end in the backlash of the Women's League, and he does not want to go to an election with that kind of trouble within the ANC. So the IFP believes that this reshuffle was not in the collective interests of the country, but in the collective interests of the ANC's own unity. Of course, we must congratulate the new ministers and hope that they will execute their new duties and responsibilities to the best of their abilities. Safe to say, though, what we saw today was not a reshuffle, but the recycling of the old. It's the same people who have collapsed the economy. It's the same people who have been unable to create jobs. It's the same people who aided and abetted state capture. And en masse, they all remain in office, and the president seems to be aiding and abetting that kind of incompetence by actually not manning up and not stepping up to the plate to actually deal decisively with incompetent ministers.
So do you think that Home Affairs is not in a very good space with its new minister there, or do you think that he might make a difference?
Well, we can only wish him the best, Minister Kwele, and hope that he will actually take the department forward and sort out the problems that are there. He comes in at a time when the tourism is still affected by the behavior of the past minister, of course, and so he's actually landed with a very big problem. The issues of access for the majority of our people, particularly in rural areas, to the services of Home Affairs remains a problem. And me knowing him to be a rural boy, I'm sure he's going to have that close to heart. And secondly, the fact that the services at Home Affairs continue to be inconsistent with global standards, the failure to bring in new scientific, technological and innovative ideas to manage the population register and so on are cause for concern. But what is fundamental is that it's not a case of the minister. It's a fact that the entire cabinet in itself is compromised because in the main, all the individuals that were there aided and abetted state capture. They aided and abetted the President Jacob Zuma's behavior in terms of how he handled the affairs of the country. And so there's very little trust that we can actually have in any of the individuals who currently occupy office. And the only way for them to redeem themselves is to present themselves to the Commission of State Capture of Inquiry so that they can actually explain their own involvement and their own actions, but secondly, actually do their job. What we see now is just niceties, it's pleasantries, and people are just not pulling their weight. And the president failed dismally today to stamp his authority and to actually bring the new dawn to life. So the IFP takes very little comfort out of today's developments because we fundamentally believe that it's still the same choir singing the same hymn.
Thank you so much for your time. That was the view of the IFP. I now have with me the FF Plus, Dr. Kunain Mulder. Thank you for speaking with us. My cameraman's giving us directions over here. It seems to be the same narrative across all the opposition parties thus far, all singing from the same hymn book. Yes. You're on the same page as them?
Yes. If I was a rhino, I would not sleep very well tonight. I don't think that the minister being appointed now to environmental affairs can do the job. She's not cabinet material. She shouldn't be there. I think one should take into consideration that the cabinet reshuffle was not a voluntary exercise. He was forced to do that. He was forced because of the death of one of his cabinet colleagues and because the other one had to resign. So if he could choose, I think he would not have changed the cabinet at all. So his hand was forced in that sense. But if you look at what happened, it's a non-event. Yes, some positives can be taken. The fact that some departments were merged, that's a good step. Maybe that we will see more of that after the election. But I think the high point to a certain extent is that Batabile Dlamini survived another cabinet reshuffle. We'll see how long that will last. But for the rest, Stella is a good appointment. She'll bring some new energy to the Department of Communications, the new merged department. But in general, it's a symptom of what's happening in politics. I believe the president is not in charge of his own party at this stage. I think he hopes to come out of the election with a stronger mandate, and then only then he will be able to appoint his own team that he would like to see. In the meantime, we are just going through the motions, I think.
Dr. Mulder, thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Much.
Thank you. Well, we don't have anybody else lined up at the moment. We are still waiting for one or two other MPs. We have made calls to the ANC, the chief whip of the ANC in Parliament, Jackson Tembu. We are still waiting to see if he will be joining us to give his reaction as well. But for now, that's all that we have for you. Back to you in the studio.
All right.